Ukraine is fighting for survival, but not the kind it thinks. Even if Russia loses, Ukraine may still cease to exist in any meaningful sense. To save itself from Russia, Ukraine has turned to the West, and the West is not Ukraine's ally. Its interests do not need Ukraine to survive, only to function. The modern Ukrainian state is one wholly dependent on Western funding. The West does not do this out of charity, but interest. It's an opportunistic loan, a debt which is functionally unrepayable as is. It will continue to accrue interest and be used for diplomatic leverage. Natural wealth that might otherwise be used to rebuild national industry and infrastructure for the good of the Ukrainian people becomes collateral to be captured by the West. In essence, the Ukrainian state will become a permanently subordinated debtor to the Western financial system. This is not national survival. It is institutional continuity under external control. The demographic cost is even harder to reverse. Ukraine, a nation already suffering from demographic collapse, is losing a generation of men to war and a generation of women and children to permanent emigration. Refugees rarely return. Fertility collapses under instability, and labor shortages are resolved through imported labor rather than national recovery. The Ukrainian state has already announced its plan to import foreign labor to make up for the loss of roughly 30% of its labor pool. No modern state has recovered demographically from losses of this scale through post-war reconstruction alone. Combined with Ukraine's existing population collapse, its future is one that is demographically unrecognizable. The state may survive on paper, but the people who constituted it will not. Therefore, Ukraine risks becoming a state with formal sovereignty, but which is financially and politically dominated, while also not being the same people that entered the war. But this analysis would be incomplete without looking at Russia's intentions. Russia does not see Ukrainians as an independent people, but rather as part of a greater Russian identity. And Russia's actions demonstrate hostility towards a distinct Ukrainian culture. In practical terms, this means cultural absorption, political subordination, and the end of an independent Ukrainian national project. Putin himself writes in his essay titled "The Historical Unity of Russians and Ukrainians" that they are brother peoples bound by history and blood. The West disagrees and instead promotes the idea of civic nationalism. Anyone who lives in Ukraine and fulfills the requirements of the Ukrainian state is Ukrainian, regardless of historical continuity. So the tragic choice is between losing your distinct identity or losing your people. This is not a moral judgment of Ukrainian choices, but an analysis of incentives and outcomes. Russia requires the survival of the Ukrainian people, with the caveat that they will exist as Russians. The West requires the survival of the Ukrainian state bureaucracy, but cares not for the survival of the population, as debt obligations and contracts require institutions, not people. Neither outcome preserves the historical Ukraine, but refusing to acknowledge this dilemma does not make it disappear.